Hey, this is Callan from Integral Lifestyle Design, and today I want to talk to you about why your 20s are probably going to be the hardest decade of your life. So, this video is geared towards men, obviously. I'm a man, so I understand what men go through much better than with women. So, this video, when I'm saying your 20s is going to be the hardest period of your life, I'm specifically talking about men and the current issues that men go through, right? And this is obviously a generalization. So some people are going to struggle more or less in different periods of their life. But I think on average, and based off the guys I've talked to and sort of the stuff I've seen online and so, a man's 20s are usually, at least his early 20s, are usually the hardest period of his life. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So again, let's think about lifestyle design sort of metric, like time, money, relationships, purpose, so on, so on. A lot of young men haven't figured that out. So let's say time. Say a 20-year-old, they don't really know what they want to do with their life. Maybe they're working some part-time like job that they hate that's paying them a little bit of money, but it's not really anything significant, sort of minimum wage sort of vibes. Most men in their 20s are sort of going to be at that point. Relationships, right? So obviously women are far more attracted to success and like abundance and resources and all of those things than what men are. So as a 20-year-old guy, you don't have any of that yet. You probably haven't built the body that you want to have. You probably aren't making any good money. You probably don't have any cool networks. You probably don't have the time freedom or the financial freedom to like go and travel or to go on adventures or to have cool dates or so on and so on. So a lot of women aren't going to be attracted to you in your early 20s. For a man, basically, the younger you are, the less options you have to a point. Like we sort of peak in our mid-30s with that stuff. So that's another one. Education. A lot of people have to go to school and go to uni or whatever, and they have to do a lot of things that aren't even relevant in order to achieve a certain position in life. There's that too. Or if they're starting a business, they've got to go through years and years and years of failure in order to finally find a business or a strategy that is successful. So your 20s are really, as a man, unless you sort of lucked out genetically or financially or whatever, or you like became a celebrity, say you're a musician or an actor, or you've hit the jackpot somehow, your 20s are going to be probably pretty rough. And this is assuming you're doing all the right things, because obviously if you waste your 20s, then you've got to do all this in your 30s. But say that you're doing the right things. In your 20s, you need to sort out your money. You need to learn how to talk to girls. You need to learn how to build a healthy body. You need to learn about nutrition, about fitness, about all this stuff. You're not really respected by society. It's a societal sort of thing. Not as much now, but it still very much exists that older people are respected more. If there's someone giving a lecture and they've got some grey hairs, a lot of people listen just because that person's been on the planet for longer. That it's perceived that they have more wisdom. So guys in their 20s struggle for many reasons. And you see that in the male depression rates. I think intimacy, it's a very human thing to want intimacy. And you've got that 30% of young men that just can't get laid. They can't get a girlfriend. They're basically involuntary celibate. Whether they identify with that or not, if you want a relationship or you want intimacy and can't get it, inherently you're involuntary celibate. What else we got? There's a whole bunch of different things. Men, like I said, they make no money. Maybe they're building a business, and in that case, they're building it. It hasn't been built yet, so they're struggling. Or they're working, or they're doing a combination. And if they're working minimum wage, or they're studying and not getting any money, or even, depending on where you are in the world, paying and getting into a lot of debt in order to have some sort of qualification. So, it really, I don't know, it's a complicated puzzle. But your 20s is basically if life's a game, if life's a role-playing game, in your 20s you basically have to figure out your character and where you want to put your stats. Sort of, if you had a skill tree, what sort of stats and attributes do you want to focus on? What sort of man do you want to become? And that's pretty hard. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of things you'll try in your 20s and you'll fail. You'll have a lot of experiences of being rejected or not feeling worthy or not feeling happy, or so on, so on. It's a very challenging time for a lot of young men. People become very depressed. Not everybody, but there's many people in their 20s that are just miserable, they're depressed. And there's sort of two strategies. One I think is much better, which is like a self-improvement route to become more balanced, more happy, be that materially, like, building assets, learning how to talk to girls, learning how to dress, learning how to like build a social circle, learning how to make good money, building some assets, so on. That's all really useful. That'll set you up for life. But then you get a lot of men too that are more sort of nihilist about the whole thing. And those guys more so just, they hide from it, so they'll play video games, they'll watch porn, they'll eat junk food, they'll do like the bare minimum to sort of keep a roof over their head but nothing else. And maybe for a time that works, but there's going to be a time where the video games and the porn and the junk food and all these copes, they're just not going to help you. Your dopamine receptors are going to fry out, and those pleasurable things are no longer going to feel pleasurable. And because they're such high stimulus activities, in comparison to doing these things, the real life equivalents like building a business or going and talking to a girl, all this isn't going to have near the neurological impact that it normally would, because you've fried out your dopamine receptors. You've essentially overclocked your own brain so that it can't function properly. So that's basically the fundamentals of it. Your 20s are probably going to suck. It's probably going to be a decade full of things you don't really want to do. Like, you'll be able to understand it. It's basically long-term gratification. You're saying, I have to do this, this, and this, and this, which I don't want to do. But the process of doing those hard things is going to get you to the place you want to be. And ideally, in your 20s, you're going to figure out your purpose. Because if you're aimless, you're just going to go in circles. You're not going to actually achieve anything. But if you can establish some sense of purpose, if you can figure out what you actually want to do with your life, and again, that doesn't have to be forever, but it's like, what do you want to do right now? What do you want to build? Then you'll go somewhere. Like, imagine if you're walking, you need a destination. You need to think of a place that you want to walk to. If you're walking through the bush aimlessly with no destination, you're just going to go in circles. You're never going to get anywhere. So you've got to figure out what's that thing or maybe two things that you want to master. And your 20s, I'm saying it's hard, but at the same time, it's a lot of runway. You've essentially got two options, right? Now, when I say your 20s is going to be the hardest decade, that's assuming you do the right things, right? If you do the wrong things, it could even spiral down from there. If you don't work on anything in your 20s and you just binge on different dopamine stimuli, you're not going to get anywhere. So you've got two options, which is option one, do nothing, have a really mediocre 20s, and basically the rest of your life will also be mediocre. Or you can sort of sacrifice your 20s by doing a lot of things that you don't want to do, that you know are going to pay off long term, which might even make your 20s worse. Say person A just plays games and watches porn and eats junk food and does drugs and whatever. That person's 20s might be better than your 20s when you're doing the right things. I mean, possibly. But the thing is, when you both hit 30, right, that person has nothing. They haven't done anything. They haven't built anything. They've got nothing to show for it because, they've been lazy essentially. But when you're 30, even if your 20s were worse than person A's 20s, because you've done a bunch of hard things, once you're 30, you really hit that advantage as a man, because I think society has men thinking on a female timescale. So obviously for women, their 20s are very important. Women have a lot of power in their 20s. Women can control and influence social situations far better than men can. Like, one, because they're physically beautiful, and that is a very powerful thing. But also, women are just much more socially gifted on average than men. They just, they've got higher on average emotional intelligence, and as a result, they're able to get what they want more often than not. See, when as a guy, in your 20s, you're nothing. You think of reproduction, like the majority of women would reproduce, say 80% of women reproduced. Men, I think there's times back in history where it's as little as like 1 in 17 men actually passed on their genes. It was a very competitive thing, right? So a lot of men in their 20s, they'd struggle, they'd have to go through all this stuff, and eventually they'd push through and become one of those top tier guys, right? And essentially, life for a man isn't going to be too great unless you're sort of sitting, not at the top, but near the top, like say, let's top 20%. If you're in the top 20%, your life's going to be far better than someone who isn't in that top 20%, obviously. Because you say you want to have a family, You need money, you need resources, you need a certain character, you need to be able to attract a woman. You need to be able to have her fall in love and stay in love. Because falling in love, you get all these pickup people that can make someone fall in love. Making someone stay in love, that's a totally different skill set. So they'll do that. And from there on out, they have a pretty happy life. They've got a purpose. They've narrowed in on that. And at the same time, they've got this beautiful family supporting them. They've got all these beautiful people. They've got good friends, good networks, good mentors. They wake up with a goal. It's really powerful. So you basically have two options. You can waste your 20s, do nothing, or maybe do the bare minimum and get to your 30s and basically the struggling and the suffering of being a young man just keeps going or even gets worse. Or you can do the right things and you get to your 30s and from there on out you're good. It's basically success for a man, and I'm not talking about spirituality. Spirituality is a different sort of thing, right? Spirituality, you can love yourself regardless of where you sit. But on average, to be successful as a man, you have to be better than other men. There's a competitive part to it. If you want to roll, like I was saying this to my friend who wants to be a musician, saying if you want to be a musician, there's basically, say this lounge, there's only so much space. Once this lounge is full, no one else is going to be able to sit on the lounge. Say there's 100 people that want to sit on this lounge, maybe you could fit 15 people on it, right? So the other 85, they're not going to stand a chance, so there's a competitive nature to sit on this lounge. Anything that isn't abundant, anything that's rare or hard to find, hard to secure, there's going to be a competition for it. If a lot of people want one thing, there's only one of them, it's competitive. So as a guy, your life's going to get better if you become a more high quality man, because then you've got the ability to be one of the people sitting on this lounge. And that's a harsh reality of the world, right? But it's true. Life consumes life. Things eat other things. You as a living thing have to consume other living things to live. Even if you're a vegan, you have to eat plants. Plants are still living things. So basically, your goal should be to be above average. At the end of the day, the further above average you are, the easier your life's going to be. And that's really powerful. You're going to have more options. If you're above average, you're going to make more money. You're going to have a wider selection of women you can date. You're going to have probably a better body. You're going to be healthier. You're going to have a healthier lifestyle. Your mental health's going to be better. Because there's stuff in our brain. Our brain knows where we sit in a hierarchy. You can try and sort of delude yourself that you're in a different position than what you are. But your brain knows where you are, just subconsciously. The sort of behaviors that you will betray really jump on that. Like say someone's struggling to date in Australia or the US or whatever. They go over to Southeast Asia and it's really easy. The way they pick up a girl over there or the way they talk to someone is going to be different because they'll feel confident. They'll feel like they're getting somewhere than if they're in Australia. So it depends. Same with money. If you take money over there, same thing. You feel like you're a king because you're making so much more money than everybody else. So essentially, being above average is going to make you happy. And your 20s is this massive runway to shoot that plane up into the sky of you being the sort of guy you want to be. Whatever metric it's success is. Success is personal. For some people, it's heaps of money and heaps of privilege and status and power. For other people, it's just freedom. For me, it's more the freedom side. So success for me is location independence, which I don't have yet, but it's being location independent. It's having control of your time, control of your life, having clear boundaries, having positive, uplifting relationships in your life. Essentially maxing out all your little lifestyle design stats. But it's okay to understand your 20s are going to be hard. Either way, if you do the wrong things, your 20s are going to be hard. If you do the right things, your 20s are going to be hard. And, as a human being, if you just overcook your dopamine receptors by playing games, watching porn, and so on, that might be fine for a year. But eventually, you're going to become numb. And you're not going to feel those things anymore. So yeah, bit of a serious video. Just a couple of insights on why your 20s will probably not be the best decade of your life. That doesn't mean they can't be fun. That doesn't mean you can't party, right? But ideally, self-improvement, the idea of it is that your life should be getting better and better and better. And it's not going to be a linear straight line. You're going to get better and better, then you're going to crash a bit, then you're going to get better, crash a bit, get better, crash a bit. As long as every year, every 3 years, however you want to look at it, you're slightly ahead of where you were previously. Because as a human, especially a masculine being, you enjoy growth. Growth's a really important thing. So if you got anything out of this video, leave some feedback, like, comment, subscribe, so on, so on. Comments are the best because I really love to know what people think about this stuff. Apart from that, peace out. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're in your 20s, keep grinding. Love yourself. Be kind to yourself, but at the same time, push yourself. You need both those energies. You need that feminine, unconditional self-love, but you also need that masculine push. You need to be able to push this. Because if you don't push yourself, you're not going to achieve what you want. If what you want is a competitive thing and other people want it too, you do have to be like a bigger, brighter light than they are in order to have it. All the best.